Welcome to the Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum. This is where we let you know about the candidates, why they're running for office, and where they stand on the issues. Hi, I'm Richard Nelson, your host. Joining us for this forum is candidate for State House District 24, Asa Waggoner. Asa, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, as I said, this is an opportunity to introduce yourself to the voters in House District 24 and let them know who you are, what you believe, and what you do if you were elected to serve in the state legislature. So, Asa, you're a pretty young guy. First of all, let me take a step back. House District 24 is in West Kentucky. That's in it's LaRue, Greene, and Hart counties.
That's correct.
Correct. So, fairly rural part of Kentucky, agricultural area. Tell us a little bit about your background and then what's prompted you to run for office.
Well, I grew up in a Christian household. I live in Rowletts, which is between Horse Cave and Munfordville, and of course, most people that know their history knows that some of the Civil War came through there. There's the historic Battle of the Bridge, and actually in Munfordville every year in September we have Civil War days, and you know I grew up there. I went to church there, and I've always feel like I was a part of the community, and I tried my best to work there and just support the community, you know. And I work at a grocery store, IGA Houchins, and I've been there, you know, Lord willing, if I make it 7 years in June. And, you know, I've worked other jobs too. Of course, you know, the way the economy is now, sometimes you got to work a little bit more or do a little bit more. So, you know, I worked a little bit with the Hart County News Herald. I covered the Horse Cave City Council for about a year and a half or so. Okay. And I also worked sometimes during the summer at, I started first time last year at Mammoth Cave National Park, helping transport people down to the river down there and you know, bringing them back up. So I like living where I live at. It's nice.
Okay, it is a pretty area. The Mammoth Cave area is it's amazing. It's actually one of the top tourism areas in Kentucky. I strongly recommend going. Anybody tuned in, if you've not been to Mammoth Cave, take an opportunity and go visit. Asa, you say on your Twitter profile, not a politician, selfless, willing to serve, working class Kentuckian. Does that profile touch a nerve with the voters in your district?
Yes, you know, people are getting, you know, tired of the way things are going, and you know, you can, you know, when I'm at work, you know, I work over in the produce, and you know, you hear people, oh, and, you know, I wish this stuff wasn't so high, and you know, they're getting tired of the way things are going. And of course, people who know me anyway, they've known my political involvement, we'll have conversation. They're just kind of tired of the way things are going, and they feel like that the people we elect aren't doing what we sent them up there for, and you know, and it kind of, we need more people to go up there not doing stuff for them and doing it for other people, and that's what I feel like I've done, you know, as far as, you know, me being involved in church. I don't like making stuff about me. I don't like bragging on myself. You should just do something because it's the right thing to do, and, you know, so that's about where I am on that. You should just do something because it's the right thing not to, because you're going to get some kind of notoriety or you're going to get some kind of, you know, award or something like that. You should just do it because it's the right thing to do, and it doesn't matter if, you know, who's watching. Not just do it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Do you feel that running for office is a calling? You know, most people don't think wake up one day and say I'm going to run for office, or they don't. It's not a typical job. But do you feel called to run?
I do. I feel like the Lord kind of moved me to do this because we, you know, in my view, I feel like that this is, you know, and there's a lot of hyperbole over, oh, this is the most important election. This is the most important. I really do believe that the 2024 election is going to set the future of our country, and we need the right people to stand up and take action and listen to the people and fight for our Constitution and our values.
Yeah. You mentioned that you're a born-again believer, grew up in a Christian home. How does your faith shape your approach to public policy and to serving in government?
Well, one thing I say is I like to be a very patient individual. Sometimes people are quick to act or quick to say something. I like to sit back and think about, how I feel about something, or think about what I'm going to say to somebody, and just take a lot of thought into it, and be very, slow to anger. Just kind of take heed to what I'm thinking about, and make sure I'm being very careful with it. And then also I try to my best to treat people like they want to be treated. I work at, when you work at a store and learn the produce, somebody will ask you, oh, well, where's this, or can you help me find that? And that'll show you need to, treat your customers, or, in this case with me running, treat your constituents or the voters with respect that they deserve. And if they ask something of you, you should be able to be open and willing to do that for them. And, don't have to be begrudgingly or whatever the case may be. Just, treat them like you want to be treated, and just be helpful to them.
Sure. So a servant's heart. I mean, that's a Christian principle, isn't it? You were alluding to a passage in James 1, I think 27. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, for man's anger doesn't bring about the righteousness that God requires. So those are a couple of Christian principles that shape how you approach policy. Who were some of the major political and spiritual influences in your life? Do you have anybody that's influenced you and your thinking when it comes to government and politics, whether it's a pastor or maybe a former president or other political leader?
With me running as a Republican, I know this might surprise a lot of people, but I know a lot of Republicans used to be Democrats or grew up in Democrat household. I'd say I'd put Obama as one of them, because when he became president, I was 8 years old, or 7, and 7 or 8 years old, and in the African American community that meant a lot, and it just shows that an African American can become president. And then when I look at it now, as far as him being president, even though after I've learned and looked into his policies and his politics, I don't agree with it, but it shows me, and it should show every African American, there's no reason for you not to be able to accomplish what you want to do, because we've had an African American president. There's no reason not to be able to accomplish these things.
I want to press into that a little bit, because the black experience and the white experience in Kentucky are different. I grew up in the North, by the way. I'm a transplant. Love Kentucky. It's my home. But I do know that Kentucky has a long history going back to the Civil War, and we're part of the state had slavery. In the part that I lived in far west Kentucky, they had plantations, and there was slavery there. Lexington had one of the largest slave auction trading blocks east of the Mississippi. I mean, or in this region. It was this is part of our history, and there's been a history of racism. But what did it mean for you personally? And you said it a little bit, you alluded to this, but what did that do for your family? Maybe you saw how your family members responded to Barack Obama getting elected as the first black man that made it to the White House. What are your memories of that, or how?
Well, I know, when he was elected, we were just all excited, finally, we've achieved something that we, nobody ever thought could happen, at least as far as our community was concerned. But, it was pretty much like, how I said earlier, it shows that we're able to, even to the highest office in the land, we can achieve what we need to. I mean, there's, we have black doctors, black teachers, black sports athletes, actors, we can accomplish anything we want to if we work hard and do what we need to do.
Now, of course, Asa, you're very conservative. I've looked around on your website and social media pages, and you are very conservative in your approach to government and policies. In fact, you were endorsed by a very conservative group called Take Back Kentucky. And how did you garner their endorsement?
Well, I've been involved with them for quite some time. I've been involved with them probably, let me go back. I'd say my involvement as far as me being involved in a organization or Republican politics goes back to December of 2019. I had stated something, how I felt about a particular issue or subject on my Facebook, and the youth chair of the Hart County Republicans reached out, hey, we'd like for you to come out to meetings, and I was more than glad to go. I love to get involved, and I didn't know at the time that Hart County had a Republican Party, and I said, hey, I'll be out there and go, and it's been pretty much that from then. And I used to I like to support other counties, especially our Republican counties, because the way our country's going, the Democrats are very, very mobilized, and I see that we as Republicans or conservatives or whatever you want to refer it to it as, we need to be mobilized in our effort to, get our country back on track, not only our country but our state, and we've got to work together with all of our counties to do that. So, and me doing that, I went to Take Back several times, and I've spoke on some things, or that I've had communications with the people that run it, like Mr. Rick Trites and Mr. Brown there, and they know how I feel on certain subjects, and of course, and when I used to be the chair of the Hart County GOP, they've seen the things that our county party has been able to do as far as trying to get people registered, get people to vote, and bringing in different types of candidates or different people that have certain causes to come in and speak, and trying to have a positive impact on the community as well.
Very good. You were endorsed by a group called the Americans for Health Freedom, which their mission is to encourage and educate the public and champion medical freedom for every individual. So what exactly, how do you define medical freedom? Well, I've not heard of this group, Americans for Health Freedom, but what is it that they're supporting?
Well, it goes back to 2020 when we had our pandemic, or the issue there where you had people being forced to take vaccines, whether it be because of the job they worked at or whether they worked at a hospital. There were people that had certain objections to the vaccine. They didn't want to take it, but in order for them to either keep their job or whatever the case may be, they had to take it. And what the view of them is, we should not be forcing people to take vaccines, or at least let them have their choice as to whether they should be able to do that. And I believe everybody should have the choice as to whether or not they take a vaccine or whatever kind of medical care they want to seek.
Yeah, very good. You say in your social media, I think it was on your Twitter post or on your Twitter page, that you are the law and order candidate. Not only have we seen illegal immigration rising to dangerous levels, we've also seen crime increasing in the Commonwealth. Asa, if you were elected, what would you do to preserve law and order in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we're not going the route the Democrats are going now, where they feel like we need to defund our police. We need to keep our police funded. Not only do they need to be funded, we need to increase funding in some instances, because some of our cities, like you can look at Louisville, and if you just look in other cities, New York, Chicago, that's the result of allowing lawlessness to carry on. You don't have any leaders that are putting their foot down saying we're not going to tolerate this. We need to support the police, let the police do their job. And if you let the police do their job, now that doesn't mean let them go unobserved. You've got to make sure that they are following the Constitution and not overbearing on somebody's constitutional rights. But you need to let the police do their job so that we can get our country and our crime under control.
Very good. You also say that you support hand-counted paper ballots, voter ID, precinct-level voting, paper poll books, and regular voter roll cleansing, and then moving the election process from Frankfort to the county level. Now, some of these things have been done in our legislature. There's, for example, the state's legislature passed the mandatory voter ID at the polls. Secretary of State Michael Adams is cleaning up the voter rolls. He gives regular updates on that as well. I'm not sure a whole lot more can be done, but as far as the hand-counted paper ballots, there was a study done a couple years ago that showed that they were even more inaccurate. They've done a number of studies that showed that they had a higher inaccuracy rate than if you were to put those ballots through a machine. What would you say to somebody who brings that up, that if you put the ballot through the machine, and if the ovals are filled in correctly, that's more accurate? Because we know that people can lose count, or that people make mistakes doing the hand counting. How would you respond?
Well, my response is there's several nations in Europe that do hand-counted paper ballots, and they can get the election done in one night. And the problem I'm having is when we go from the first election I ever voted in was the first presidential election I voted in was 2020, but the first 2 or 3 elections I voted in was, of course, November 2018, the election right after I registered to vote, and then, of course, the primary in 2019 and the gubernatorial election in 2019, and we didn't really have any problems, at least from what I can understand. You seem to get the results, and everybody kind of knows who won that day. Then we have 2020, where for the first time, at least for me as an experience in it, the last presidential election I watched was before then was 2016, and you knew pretty much right then about who won, and then here we go. We're going to shut the election off. We're going to come back to it, and then there's different issues where there's could be some irregularities, and I feel like if we just did it on paper, and it would help also is when you go back to paper. We need to get our precincts back. I know we've kind of lost track of that in COVID, where we need to condense down our precincts, make fewer places. We need to increase our precincts and go back to our regular precincts. In rural areas, you have people that have to drive quite a distance. Like I know in Hart County, we've just condensed our precincts down to magistrate level, and we have 5 magistrate districts, and you have people that's going to have to drive maybe 30 minutes to go vote. And in my mind, that's kind of a form of voter suppression. You need to have more ways for people to come and more locations for them to vote, so they're not having to drive so far. And then sometimes, if depending on where the location is, you may not get there in time, and then see, and that's another problem there. And so with the paper ballots, we've got to. People don't trust the elections right now. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of people that don't feel like their vote count, and there's just a cry from people that we need to go back to the basics, go back to hand counted paper ballots, and when you do that at the precinct level, it doesn't take that long. When you go to if you go to, like, let's say you go to one precinct, and let's say, for instance, when one of my districts like Hart County or LaRue County, Greene County, if you have a certain amount of people there's probably going to be maybe, depending on the election, maybe a given of 300 people. You give maybe 10 people, and you can get maybe about 50 each person. It shouldn't take that long. We need to look into the possibility of going back to hand-counted paper ballots, because right now there's a lot of people that don't trust the machines. One person I've spoke to said they have a problem with the fact that our e-poll books are connected to the internet, and just anybody who's dealt with a cell phone or a computer know that somebody can get into that, and we need to be very wary of that and take that into consideration. Paper. Maybe we should go back to paper poll books or something like that. But
if I could interject,
Sure.
Secretary of State Michael Adams said that there is no connection to the internet at polling places, whether it's actual the voter machine or poll books connected to the internet as well.
And then there must be a disconnect, because when I was at the clerk's office, they said we need to connect, this poll book needs to be connected to the internet. So I don't know what there must be a disconnect, because they said make sure, when I worked the polls last year for the first time in November, they said make sure that your poll book is connected to the internet.
Kentucky is at a crossroads. We can choose to give in to the radical left, or we can choose to engage the culture in a God-honoring way.
I started the Commonwealth Policy Center because I believe that Christians have a responsibility to influence government and society to the glory of God. While the Commonwealth Policy Center's made a significant impact, our work isn't finished. If you'd like to join our movement working for timeless values, then head to our website.
To learn more, go to CommonwealthPolicyCenter.org.
If you're just joining us, you are tuned in to Commonwealth Policy Center's Candidate Forum. With us is Asa Waggoner, Republican candidate for House District 24. The election is May the 21st. Early voting starts a few days earlier, and we appreciate you joining us. Asa, let's go through the issues that are being debated in the legislature and issues that you have weighed in on. Let's start with school choice. Where do you stand on school choice for Kentucky's parents?
I believe every parent should have the right to send their child to the school they want to. Mm-hmm. Now, in my district, the school district is a pretty powerful group. One thing I'd like to see is we need to make sure we kind of fix the school system. And I'm not saying it's going on in my district, but there's maybe places like in Louisville where they're trying to teach diversity, equity, inclusion, and CRT. And in my mind, all that is a way to divide people instead of teaching people, like Martin Luther King said, we need to judge people by their character, and I would add, in their contributions to society. We're judging people based off their race, and that shouldn't be anywhere in the school. We should be, the only thing you should be seeing is how we're all unique and are different in different ways. That's the only difference you should see, is we're all different in a unique way.
So DEI, you mentioned that. There were a couple of bills proposed this last legislative session that would have pushed back against DEI at the college level. Just did an interview with State Senator Steve Meredith, who introduced a DEI bill that would keep it out of K through 12. Is that an issue of concern, keeping it out of K through 12 as well?
Yes, I would. If that's what the bill was, I would agree with Senator Meredith. It definitely does not need to be in K through 12. We need to, most kids, they love each other. You can go see young kids, they'll just talk to each other. We shouldn't be teaching them how to see differences.
Many people were surprised when the incumbent in your district dropped out just a day or so before the filing deadline. That was State Representative Brandon Reed. Did that affect your decision to run, or were you planning to run even if he was going to?
Well, I was planning to run, no matter what. I just felt like people need to stand up, and I was willing to do that. So it wouldn't have made a difference to me.
Okay. Asa, where do you stand on the issue of the right to life?
There's no reason for an abortion. God is the one who decides, who's born and who dies. And, we shouldn't be the one, I think about the commandment, thou shalt not murder. We need to find ways to make it easier for people to adopt, make it easier in that way, and it's a real, I know it's a real hot topic and it gets real heated, but, we can't, it's not the child's fault in the womb what happened, whether it be, rape or whatever it may be. I know it's a real touchy subject, but, with my faith, I cannot support an abortion.
Okay. Of course, Kentucky is one of 14 states that does not have any abortion clinic or center. Many abortions are done through chemical means, the abortion pill. Now, that is still illegal in Kentucky, but there's a push to allow women to access abortion drugs through the mail or getting it through other avenues. What do you say about that?
No, I wouldn't support it.
Okay, very good. LGBT ideology in public schools. That was a big issue last legislative session. Senate Bill 150 passed, and that kept out gender ideology from K through 12 classrooms, boys out of the girls' bathrooms, and it stopped gender mutilation surgery and hormone therapy for gender dysphoric minors. How would you have voted on a bill like that?
I would have voted for that because we shouldn't be doing that in school. Whatever somebody wants to do when they become an adult, that's on them, but we don't need to be, grooming and kind of manipulating children in that way.
How would you respond to parents who say, look, we believe that our biological boy, really believes they're a girl, and we just want to affirm them, and the state should have no say in the decision? How would you respond to that? I actually did listen to parents testify in the legislature to that end. So some have put it as a parental rights issue, that the parents know the child best, and they think that that's best for the child.
Well, if that's what the parent wants to do with their children, that's fine, whatever they want to do, but you shouldn't put it on everybody else just because that's the way you want to raise your kids.
Okay. Second Amendment, that's another hot issue in Kentucky. There was a bill this last legislative session that would have created red flag laws. Where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
When you be for the Second Amendment, there's no reason for red flag laws, because when you start getting into red flag laws, you're starting to violate constitutional rights, because pretty much what you're saying is somebody's guilty before anybody was killed or anybody had done anything wrong. You've got to commit a crime before you go to try to charge somebody or consider something like that. You can't. That's just not nothing that we need to be entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Controversial issue in the past few years are drag queen story hours at public libraries. It seems to have gone a little bit dormant, but a few years ago this was a common thing where you'd have drag queens, men dressed up in drag, reading to children in public school libraries. How do you respond to somebody who says that this is just freedom of speech and freedom of expression, both of those things happening at once? How do you respond? Because I think you've come out against this. Is that correct?
The drag queen story hour, we need to protect the minds of our kids. The kids of our future, and we need to protect their innocence. And that's really nothing. Somebody, let's say, if somebody wants to do it at their house, fine. But I don't really. We can't really legislate that really, because you're kind of getting into that issue with free speech, freedom of expression. But I would highly discourage having something like that being done at a public library and trying to manipulate or convince our kids of something.
Sure. Another related issue are pornographic books in public school libraries, books that promote homosexuality or transgenderism. We do know that in Louisville middle schools that several of these books are widely available. Not sure what the situation is in House District 24, Hart, LaRue, or Greene counties, but where do you stand on that?
They shouldn't be in the school. These are kids. They're under 18. If that's something that can be maybe in a college library, if that's something they want to check out and look at, but this is under 18. These are kids. Those books do not need to be in there in the school, especially with it being a taxpayer-funded school. And one thing I like that they've done in Hart County is I don't know if it's the Munfordville school did it on their own, or if it's something that maybe the board maybe pushed on. They actually have something now where if the parents would sign a waiver, and depending on which line item you checked, it would allow you to be notified of the book that was checked out, and then the parent could look into that book, and if that's something that they don't want their child to check out, they can say, hey, I don't want them checking out this book, and then it will, they'll probably get flagged or something, say, hey, you can't check out your book and for you to be reading. So I think that's a good first step, but we need to go further. Those books shouldn't even be in the school in the first place.
Right. There was a bill proposed and actually passed into law last year that gave parents recourse for pulling those books or objecting to those books in their child's public school library. Tax policy. We haven't gotten to that, and we've got just a couple minutes here. Where do you stand on the move by the legislature to phase out the state income tax? It was at 6%. Now it's at 4%. I think it's slated to go down to 3.5%.
Well, I'm all for we need to, lower and get rid of the state income tax, and we need to try to lower other taxes, but we also need to get our spending under control. We don't have a, revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We need to make sure we're good stewards of the taxpayers' money. People go to work every day working hard, they're working long hours, and they feel like their money's getting wasted, and we need to make sure that we're spending their money appropriately so that the money will go further with what's given.
Very good. ASO, we've got just a minute here, I believe. Tell voters in House District 24 why they should vote for you in the May 21st primary.
Well, I believe people should vote for me in the May 21st primary, because we need to get somebody in office that's, people that feel just like I do that, our country is going down the wrong path. Our state should be, spending our money more appropriately. We need to be fighting for conservative values like, making sure we're a pro-life state, making sure we're a school choice state, and along with school choice, making sure that we're fixing the curriculums in the public schools. And we need to make sure that, the government's been transparent with the voters, that the voters always know what's going on, that there's no backroom deals that's going on, that the voters are just as involved in the process as I am if Lord willing I get elected. And we also need to make sure that our voters are getting represented like they should. So I should be very, with the voters and in contact with them and responding to them and being open to them.
Okay. Very good. Asa Waggoner, thank you for joining the Commonwealth Policy and this candidate forum. How can voters get in touch with you or learn more about you?
And then get in touch with me by going to my website, www.waggoner for State Representative, or they can go on my Facebook, Asa Waggoner for State Representative, or they can get on my Twitter, or they can get on my Instagram.
All right. Thank you, and best wishes to you on the campaign trail. And thank you all for tuning in to CPC's Candidate Forum. Don't forget to vote. May 21st is primary election day, early voting just a few days prior.